Okay, so this is footage from the most recent training that I've done, trying to improve on my half marathon pace. I'm fresh from my last half marathon, which was at the Monterey Bay half marathon. I did the Ocean View challenge. I'm going to put a video about that pretty soon. But I left a lot in the tank, and I knew I left a lot in the tank, even though I PR'd on my half marathon. I left a lot in the tank, and I'm eager to get out, do another one, and try to improve. And one of the training strategies I'm going to use is training my lactate threshold a lot more, because I think that was my limiting factor in both my 5K and in my half marathon, because it's something that I just don't regularly train. And so I was watching a video from a professional runner, I forget her name, put a picture or something of her channel up while I'm editing, but she suggested using threshold training, which is pushing it close to your lactate, and gave this helpful calculator that spit out some numbers that I could use as a guide based on what my most recent 5K PR was. And so I set off to do 5 miles was my goal, and I said to myself, if I can't make that, I'll try to go as hard as I can until I get to 5, and then we'll just set 5 as the goal and work towards that and keep the pace the same. Calculator spit out a pace of 7 minutes and 18 seconds based on my last 5K PR, which I had at the 5K race I did over the weekend. And I had I can't remember my time exactly, I'll put it up on the screen, but it was sub 7 minute pace for my miles, which is awesome. That's what I really wanted. I'm glad that I got that. So now I need to kind of push it on the threshold training, and I usually run 2 miles under 7 minutes, or under around 7:05 to 6:45, but that's more of a mile repeat, I guess, time for me. So I need to hit these just above that, which was a 7 minute 18 second pace, so that I can run longer, hitting that threshold closer, so I can train my body to get rid of lactate sooner. One of the reasons I believe that lactate was a big deal in my last 2 races is because the reason I stopped was really I started to, on my 5K, I almost started to throw up. And even crossing the finish line, right before the finish line, I almost threw up right there. And so I just pushed through, luckily crossed it, and then started kind of almost dry heaving, but not really. As my heart rate decreased, everything, and I walked it out, I kind of felt fine. And I did not throw up, but it was not something that I could really push through. My body physically wanted to upheave something, and I'm suspecting that's probably the lactate, because lactate at higher levels is deadly. I don't think humans can necessarily die of it from running, but it's something that, citation desperately needed for this, but it's something that we did as humans, is we would run down animals and let them build up so much lactate in their system that they eventually collapsed from that lactate buildup and would die. So it makes sense to us that, you know, if we have something that is that toxic in our body's going to want to try to get rid of it if it doesn't already have a sufficient, or I should say efficient, way of getting rid of it. And so on my half marathon, I really felt it, even though I wasn't pushing myself that hard. As I tried to increase my speed at the very end of the finish line, I started to gag and almost again dry heave or throw up on the sidelines. It wasn't as bad as my 5K, but again, it was once my heart rate creeped up into the 180s after sustaining, you know, a 165 average over the course of, you know, whatever amount of miles for the half marathon was, you know, 12, 13 miles. And I'm hoping that this training helps with my body's efficiency when it comes to getting rid of lactate and being more effective with the dumping of the lactate from my system. So this is all new to me, and I think this is probably the first time I have ran 4 miles at this pace, and it was pretty brutal for me, especially because I chose an area that had some elevation gain. You can see the elevation gain on the side of the screen here, and that elevation gain is something that I do need to practice, so that's why I chose this route in particular, but it does add some complexity to the run and some difficulty to the run, which again is something I need because I really do need to train these systems better if I want to improve, and I eventually want to get the time that I would like to get, or my goal time, my, you know, pie in the sky at this point goal time of 1 hour and 30 minutes. If I could get that at some point in my life, that would be awesome. So I got to train hard now because biologically, the clock is not necessarily in my favor. I am 38 years old, and in April of this coming year, so 2026, I'll be turning 39. And although I'm feeling strong and somewhat in my prime right now, I know that there will be a point in the not too distant future where I will start to have a decline, and maybe not my performance, but my ability to improve my performance. So I don't look forward to that day where I will have to deal with the fact that I cannot improve any longer. And unfortunately, that's not now, but it's becoming closer as the years go by. And so, as much as I would like to pretend that it won't happen, it will happen. And I think that's a good thing because it does light a fire under me to get my training done now and know that the clock is ticking and that I can only improve for so long. And so I need to, if I have these lofty goals, I need to pack a lot of training in this short amount of time. Being mindful of fatigue management, of course, and keeping my body in a recovery-friendly state so that I can keep pushing the training. But I think that's why watching experts in the field and then picking up on some of their strategies can be very helpful. Not necessarily copying them on everything that they do, because everybody leads very different lives and their stress loads look very different. A lot of professional athletes, that's their job, so that's all they really have to focus on and recover from. But people like us, you know, we have jobs, we have children, and we may have even other hobbies or sports that we enjoy doing. So everybody's training's got to look a little different, but depending on your goals, you can really pick up some helpful tips and hints from some of the experts. And this threshold training felt really good. I think I am close. Well, yeah, I'm just over a mile now into it, and I'm starting to feel it because I usually do on my shorter runs, and keeping the pace up is something that was not necessarily difficult for me, but it's something that I had to keep an eye on. So I keep lifting my wrist. You can't really see it in the camera, but I'm having to lift my wrist and track my pace. Now my pace is 8:12 right now because I had to slow it down quite a bit because I got a little too fast in the beginning, and I really wanted to maintain that 7:18 that it told me to. It seemed like a fair goal, and I I wanted to get to as close to 5 miles as I could. I knew I could sustain this for at least a 5K, because it's not really close to my record time for a 5K, but I was trying to go for as long as I could to get to 5 miles, and without sort of tempering my speeds throughout this run, I would not have been able to maintain that pace. So I usually get a little bit fast when I'm crossing the roads, and then that pace is harder to slow down as I go forward. This is like an industrial part of the town that I live in, and it's a very interesting place to run through. There's a lot of cars normally, but as I get closer, it actually gets into a part of the city that's more pedestrian and runner friendly than most of the city. But it's a relatively straight shot for a lot. You can see up in the map in the left corner, I got a lot of straightaways, which is why I don't like to run in the neighborhoods, but I like to pick roads that are out and around the city, so that I get longer stretches where I can just focus on zoning out and getting my form in check. And if I'm constantly turning the corner, I can't really do that, and it kind of slows me down. So I enjoy these longer straightaways, if you will. And this is a really cool part of the town that I live in. I run along the freeway system, and then through, which is what is known as directionally the east side of town. And as you can see here, my heart rate is still right in that area of 170, 173. And this is, I guess, not actually my lactate threshold. Or actually, I should take that back. This is probably right now that 174, 176, that's like kind of my threshold that I can hold out. And then once it gets past that point, the buildup just becomes too much, and I start to feel a little sick. And even during this run, I pull back, not necessarily from seeing my pace on my watch, but I start to feel a little bit sick in my stomach, and so I'll pull back a little bit on some of these. But a lot of this is me trying to make lights right now, and so that is why I'm going so fast. And I know that I can just slow it down later, because I'm going to have areas like hilly places that I'm going to need to slow down for naturally anyway. And so you can see my heart rate climb into the 180s on that. And that's when I really start to feel it. And I know that I need to start slowing it down. But again, when I'm crossing streets and stuff, I think it's a whole different thing with my heart rate, and it starts to get it going, because I don't want to get hit by a car. So there's a little bit of, fight or flight reflex kicking in that makes me go a little bit faster and elevates my heart rate a little bit more than probably what would normally happen from the speeds that I was going. So this portion of this 4 mile run is a little bit hectic, because the sidewalk is very narrow, and there are these, like, a lot of these obstacles, whether they be the palm trees or the telephone poles, and there's lots of times pedestrians or people walking down this sidewalk, and I don't run on the sidewalk unless I absolutely have to when pedestrians are on it, because I believe that people that are walking, of course, they have the right of way, and they shouldn't feel like they're being rushed to move out of your way. You should be moving out of their way. And so it gets a little hectic because the cars are going pretty fast and there's multiple lanes, and sometimes I do have to get out into the street. But I do got to say, on this side of town, people are a lot more pedestrian and runner aware. They're a lot more likely to stop chaos because there's always foot traffic on these streets, and especially on the weekends because I'll run through here when I do my longer runs. And so the street that we're going to be going down will have a hill at the end, and so I chose this path so that we could get to the hill at the very end, so that I could have a little bit. There's not too much elevation here in this town, but there is enough elevation around that I can find those spots and train them so that I can get at least a little taste of the elevation game, because a lot of races that you sign up for are going to have more elevation gain than the places that are normally ran in an area like mine that's flat for the most part. So you have to pick and choose the places that you run in order to plan the elevation rises into your routine or into your program. So that's one of the things that's problematic for my wife. She runs by herself a lot in these areas, or not necessarily the area I'm in right now, but the areas that I have to run through to get to these areas are less than reputable at times, and being a single woman out there, it's not necessarily the safest bet for her, and so she runs inside the neighborhoods, but like she doesn't have any elevation gain inside the neighborhood, so she doesn't really have an opportunity to practice the elevation gain like I do. And so I want to make more time for her and I to do some hill training together, because without me kind of taking her on these routes, she doesn't have an opportunity to try these things out. So we don't always have to do long runs in these routes, but doing short little hill trainings here and there. As you can see, I'm now on an incline. I'm gaining elevation as I work up. So this is good for me. It's small. It's not like a ton of elevation. You can see it's not a 10% grade or anything like that. It's a very modest grade, but any sort of grade is going to benefit me overall, because without it, I'm not going to get any. And I'm checking my watch right now to make sure that I'm not too slow. Now my pace is on the slower end, but that's because I am going uphill, and I will have to kind of deal with that as time goes on. I think my tracking on my pace and everything's a little bit off because I just did a screen recording on my iPhone, and I just got rid of the background to add it on here, and you can see that I'm not going that fast or uphill. Maybe I am. My heart rate's climbing up there, and it is slower than what my heart rate would be. So the pace is interesting to look at. This is kind of the first time I'm watching this whole thing and watching all the data come out live, and I try to piece it together as well as I could, but I'm not sure how accurate the splice together is. I mean, based off the map movement and everything, it looks pretty darn accurate to me. So I might just start doing this every time I'm doing a training now leading up to the next half marathon I do, because I really enjoy this perspective off the GoPro. I bought a little head and chest rig, and it's very comfortable. It doesn't bother me or anything while I'm running. In fact, it's very comfortable. And the footage that I get is the first time I'm seeing it all through. It's just really cool, because these are all the things I get to see on my runs day in and day out, and I just think I live in a really cool city. And maybe other people are watching this and thinking it's cool too, or maybe nobody's watching it. It doesn't really matter to me. It's YouTube is kind of a cool place to store the stuff and make it public, and if people want to watch it, then people can watch it. But I enjoy reliving it, and I know that when, I hate to think of it, but when there comes a time when I'm not able to do this kind of stuff, and I'm sitting in my chair as an old man reflecting on my life, my memory's great, but to have video and to have commentary, like a vocal diary of all the things that I did when I was still young and able. I know I'm going to look back on that, or look at it not the near future, but in the more distant future, and I'm going to look at it and be happy that I recorded it, because I already look back at this kind of stuff, and even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I go, wow, I'm glad I saved that memory, and I'm able to revisit it again. And that's one of those things that I think this digital world does well, that it allows us to be preservers of moments that maybe in another time would have gone not unnoticed, but would have vanished and gotten lost in history. But we have a unique opportunity, even at this peasant level that most of us are in, to kind of preserve a history of who we are, and pass that on to at least our own family. And I think that's something that everybody will enjoy in the future. Or maybe not. Maybe we'll all just be making way too much stuff. Nobody will be able to sort out any of it because we don't curate it well. But I think that's why maybe upping the production value and doing something where it's not just a recording, but it's a purposeful recording with a goal and a plan, then it's something that people are more likely to save. And I think putting it on a platform like YouTube as well is saying something as far as archiving goes. But getting back to the run, I'm now sort of in that 170 to 180 zone. I had to pick up the speed because I'm, again, trying to maintain that 7:18 pace. And there was a good amount of time where I was just uphill. Again, and not a crazy hill, but now I went back down it, and I needed to take advantage of that gravity and run as fast as I could down that hill. My heart rate now is decreasing, as you can see, and I'm trying to, as I'm decreasing and I'm slowing myself down, you can see my pace slowing down so that I can maintain 7:18 but without burning out and throwing up, because every time I creep over that 179 and I get into that 182 range, I really feel like the start of something bad in my stomach. And I definitely didn't want to stop to barf on this run. I wanted to finish it, even if it was 4 miles. I think if I went to 5, I might have just barfed at the end. So I think stopping at 4, even though it wasn't an all-out effort, stopping at 4 was a good idea. Even so, it rated this run for me at the end at an 8 effort, and I agreed with that. And I usually never get 8s on my runs, or any exercise I do. So for it to suggest an 8 was, it was saying something. So this overall, I think, is a great strategy. I think my body will become more efficient at dumping lactate if I continue to train this threshold. The only thing is that I'm feeling good today. It's a Tuesday, but I also had the day off because of Veterans Day. And having the day off always makes it easier to do these sort of hard workouts because you have a little bit more energy because you haven't had it all sucked out of you from your job. And so now the real game is going to be, can I maintain the discipline that I need to push these runs every week so that I'm training this lactate threshold consistently enough so that it will make improvements. Because doing this once, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, my Apple Watch clocked me in at a 51.9 VO2 max, which is awesome. All that's great, but if I don't consistently show up for this particular training session, it's not going to push my body to make adaptations. And so that's going to be the real hard part, not the actual workout itself, but the consistency of showing up for this workout. And I think part of what's going to make it easier is that I had a really good experience this time around. I gave myself some room to not go the full 5 miles and to stop when I felt like I couldn't take it anymore and I was going to throw up. Now, to be honest, I feel like I could have pushed myself, maybe thrown up, but pushed myself to 5 miles. But if I would have thrown up, I would have felt a lot worse about the run, probably felt a little bit defeated and not wanted to do it again. So this is the kind of mental game you have to play. But now, after finishing the way that I did, I feel good. I made 4 miles because I allowed myself that room. When it came to programming, I said, hey, if you can get to 3 at this, fine. You just ran a race this weekend. If you can get to 4, great. That's even better. If you can get to 5, amazing. I didn't get to 5. I got to 4. Now I can make 5 my goal. And I have a really good feeling that I'm going to make that 7:18 pace for the next threshold training, and I'm going to make it to 5 miles. And if that's the case, then I think the next training session I can push it to maybe 5.5 miles. We'll see. These are all sort of variables that are in my control. So they're little levers that I can pull when it comes to programming. So these are all important considerations when you don't have a coach and you are programming for yourself and you're taking bits and pieces of things that you learn from experts, mostly on YouTube. But you know what? That's I think that's the beauty of this community on YouTube, is that it allows people to share information and inspire others. And I hope if people are watching this and you've made it into 26 minutes of listening to me ramble, that's amazing. And maybe hopefully something I've said clicked with you and inspires or helps you to maybe start a threshold run yourself and try the same sort of strategy that I'm trying. I think I'm going to post all my different training sessions in this format where I'm kind of just speaking off the cuff and speaking about what I remember from the training session that as it was going on. Again, this session was earlier this morning, so I'm recording this voiceover the same day that I recorded the training. And I'm enjoying giving commentary as I watch through the training that I did, because this is the first time again that I'm seeing it. So it's giving me some perspective, and it's cool. I enjoy the on the head POV. So now this is the interesting part here. I'm getting to a 7:18 pace, and I'm thinking to myself, this is awesome. I'm almost done. I'm at 3.85 miles. I think I just looked at my watch right now. And I'm getting closer, and I'm thinking, oh yes, I'm going to make it. I'm going to get that 7:18 pace that I wanted. Pay no attention to that blue pace marker right now, because that's just my pace for that split second. So it's not my average pace, excuse me, which is really what I'm going for. I said, I know I can get to it if I get down this hill fast enough, use gravity to my advantage. And I thought to myself, look at it, I'm almost there. I'm going to end it right on the downhill. It's going to be perfect. And then I got to the downhill, and I still wasn't at the completed 4 miles. And I had this little slope, as you can see. And I said, you know what? I just got to power up it, because that is what is going to happen in a race. I'm going to have elevation, and I need to be able to kick it into a higher gear while that elevation is there and push through the pain.